Hey guys, I thought it would be fun to do a little video about our koi that we have in our pond. When we first bought this property, this pond was super muddy and murky. There weren't any plants in or around the pond. It was just a muddy pond. And I knew from the get-go that I really wanted to have fish in this pond at some point. I just didn't know how to get the pond ready. So I did a little bit of research and I decided that I was just going to leave the pond alone. And what happened over time was that turtles came to the pond, herons and egrets and all kinds of other wildlife, and that brought native plants into the pond because seeds would get on their back or their legs and then they would come and land in the pond. And so plants started growing in the pond, most of which are like pussy willows, wild willows, like weeping willow trees sort of, and some kind of floating pond plant that has yellow flowers. I'm not sure what it's called. I've been trying to look it up for a while and I couldn't find anything on it. So once that happened, the water started clearing up, as like you could see in this video here. It started clearing up really, really well, and then I knew I was ready to put some fish in there. And there wasn't any fish in this pond at all before. So I decided that I wanted to try putting koi in there. So I did a little bit of research and ended up finding out that koi actually thrive in muddy waters. They grow a lot faster, and it kind of makes sense because if you think about it, koi was first discovered in the rice paddies in Japan and China. So if you can imagine how muddy and murky those waters were, this probably doesn't hold a candle to that. And there is a little bit of controversy on whether or not koi were discovered in China or Japan. I think they were actually discovered in China and then later brought to Japan. But anyway, so they grow really, really fast when they're in muddy, murky waters. And our koi, when we released them, like you saw in the beginning of this video, they were only 3 inches long, and we got them at PetSmart. And believe it or not, PetSmart has really great quality koi. So within about a month, we started seeing them start to surface again, and they were huge. I think by the time we saw them again after we released them into the pond, they were already 6 inches, and then a month later they were 8 inches. Another month later they're 12 inches, and now they're just massive. And we put them in there last May, so it's January now, the following year, and they're just humongous. So one thing you got to keep in mind though, if you keep koi in your pond, is that if your pond is really shallow and you have herons like we do, they can eat your koi, and they can eat them when they're full grown too, believe it or not. I don't know how they fit them down their necks, but they can. So our pond in the center is over 8 feet deep, and we actually put these heavy pots, like cylinder pots, down in the bottom of our pond so that the fish can have somewhere to hide. And then we also leave the plant life in the spring so that they could hide in the plants. And the plant life's actually really important because they feed on the plant life. They'll eat the frog eggs, they eat mosquito larvae, they'll eat mosquito fish, which we also released in this pond. You'll see a clip of that later. So there's all kinds of things for them to eat in the pond and all kinds of things that can eat them in the pond, like snakes and turtles. However, we haven't had the turtles eat any of our koi at all, so I'm kind of happy about that. I think we have 18 koi in this pond now, and the type of turtles that we have in our pond are red stripers, and they're actually pretty friendly. We feed them all the time, and they come right up to us to get food, which is really cool. These are some butterfly koi that I ended up releasing later on. So we really enjoy watching them in there. They are very cold hardy. They can withstand freezing temperatures. They just end up going into the deep end of the water, and they kind of do like a winter sleep in the wintertime, so you don't need to feed them at all. We actually don't have to feed ours at all because they have so much plant life and so much larvae that they can eat, that they don't even bother to eat anything that we put in the pond, so we don't even feed them anymore. But you can see in these clips, there's tons of plants in the water, and that's what they eat. And I actually got to see them breed this year in the plants, and it's kind of cool because you'll see 2 of the male fish kind of sandwich in a female, and they'll just kind of rub around each other in the plants. It's really interesting. So I'm excited to see some baby fish this year. I also dug out a side pond, or I'm in the process of digging out a side pond here in the corner of this pond, and I'm going to do a little bit of breeding in that little corner, so that'll be really interesting. This new section that I'm digging out is going to be really shallow, so I am going to end up putting a net over that. And I do plan on planting a lot more pond type plants around the pond this year, one of which is going to be lotuses. I really love lotuses. Every part of that plant is edible, so I'll be harvesting it once it gets established, because it can be pretty invasive, especially here in Texas. But because I can eat every part of the plant, including the seeds, flowers, stalks, leaves, and root, it's worth it to me to plant that because I'll be able to keep up with it. So these shots here are just from today. So we're in midwinter, early January. So I don't know, it's a pretty warm winter so far, but we've had some really cold days, and the fish did fine. During the day, they come to the surface to get warmth from the sun, and then when the sun goes down, they go down to the deep end of the pond, and that's how they stay warm. So, yeah, we're really happy with the koi so far. We haven't lost any of them. Like I said, I think there's about 18 to 20 in here. And I do plan on getting a few more when I'm done with that breeding pond that I'm working on. So I'll make sure to do updates on that. But I just wanted to give you guys a little peek at this pond because I don't think I've ever done a video on it. And I thought it would be fun for you guys to kind of see the progress of this pond, because it is really beautiful in the springtime. And I do plan on getting more shots of that. So if you've been thinking about keeping koi in your stock tank or in your pond, do it. It's so much fun. I think it's so worth it to see them swimming around in there. It's so peaceful, and I could spend hours just sitting here watching them. Just don't forget to plant some plants in there so your water can clear up in the spring and summer and fall, really. I think winter is the only time it gets this murky. The rest of the year, it's nice and clear because there's so many plants in there. But yeah, that's it for this video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.